Holy shit. There we go. YouTuber merch. Ah, it's beginning to look a lot like Fuckmas. Nah. Hey! Thomas the Tank Engine is weird, right? The year is 1945. I am negative 53 years old. And this little thing called World War II is ending? I mean, thank God, right? Who did they beat again? Oh, no! And somewhere in England, probably Ampfield, the Reverend Wilbert Vere Audrey is finalizing details on a book that will influence children's lives for years to come. And I should know! Because I was a child once? Wait, no, that's not how I wanted it. The Three Railway Engines was later released that year to much critical acclaim and audience appeal. And after seeing the success of said book, Reverend Wilbert Audrey would go on to release 25 more books! Oh my god! Reverend Wilbert Audrey publishes his final book in 1972. I am negative 26 years old, which means that it took the same amount of time for Audrey to publish all 26 of the Railway series books that it took for me to get a video and film degree and get a job as a server at Crack. Audrey's inspiration for the Railway series was telling his son Christopher stories in bed when he was sick or when there were some lonely nights in about the railway that ran next to their house. The railway running next to their house eventually inspired Audrey to get a model railway of his own, which helped him tell more stories to his son. His model railway had all of the same engines that ended up in the books, with a couple of exceptions. Fast forward a couple of years to 1979. I am not going to tell you my negative age again, because you can figure it out from this point, I'm sure. Aspiring British filmmaker Britt Allcroft is pursuing a new lead about a public information film on steam trains. During her research, she learns of Reverend Wilbert Audrey and his books and decides to have a meeting with him after she completes the public information film and talks to him about the world that he created and says, quote, "I told Wilbert I loved this whole little world he had created, and I asked if anyone had thought of bringing the stories to life, and he said there had been talk, but nothing had happened, so I told him I'd love to do it." Allcroft went to British television network ITV to secure the funding, and when she did, oh boy, did it lead to a whole nother sensation. A 10-series-long animated show filmed with live-action props, a 14-series-long animated show animated with computer graphics from various animation studios, a couple of projects that we don't like to talk about, and so many more supplemental books, toys, games for children to enjoy for generations on end. But talk to anyone who has been a fan of Thomas for a large portion of their life, and they will tell you that there have been a couple of eras of Thomas the Tank Engine that most fans within the fandom would care to push to the side, ignore, if you will. Many Thomas the Tank Engine fans will tell you that the golden age of the series was the original 7-season run from 1984 to 2003. Some would cut it off short at season 5 in 1998. But why 2003? Well, the company that Britt Allcroft started was acquired by Hit Entertainment in 2004, and starting in 2004, the series changed, morphed into a younger show for younger audiences that was mostly uncalled for by the fan base. The writing worsened, the filming worsened, and many people saw Hit Entertainment as the enemy. People will point to hidden gems in the Hit Entertainment era like Respect for Gordon and call it not a complete loss, but still an era to be forgotten. There was a period of time in transition from models to CGI where there were a couple of upticks and some projects that some Thomas fans still call their favorite projects to this day, The Great Discovery, The Hero of the Rails, and even the transition into CGI with Season 13 is viewed with a little bit of respect. But then came another era of Thomas to be forgotten, some call the Nitrogen era, after the animation studio that animated it, Nitrogen Studios. Fun fact, Nitrogen Studios also animated Sausage Party. Aren't you glad you know that? weird connections between animation studios and their IPs aside, there are some bright spots to even the most modern incarnation of Thomas and Friends as it stands today, All Engines Go. All Engines Go is the fully 2D animated, rebooted, remade, restripped, flesh and meat, torn apart, and sewn back together version of Thomas that you see on the television today. And in my experience as a server, there have been children who have All Engines Go toys, and in my curiosity I've spoken to that child's parents, and every single time, the parents have told me that they still show their children the older Golden Age seasons of Thomas because they know how much better they are than the modern iterations. So there is still some hope to be had, as well as a lot more to be found all across the internet. What if I told you that there are some creators on this platform that have created entire seasons worth of new content for Thomas and Friends in train simulators? Aside from creators making amazing adaptations of old stories like Trampy and Windwatch 98, you have people who are making entirely original characters, characters based on trains from history, characters who only showed up in lore books, characters from old seasons who were disliked, new diesels, new express engines who were designed by other railways, and even new antagonists. Like, what the fuck? And even if a creator isn't making something entirely new using a train simulator or Roblox, I mean, there are people making episodes in Roblox. You enter into the world of the Analyst, the Unlucky Tug, A Sodor Life, Thomas Theorist, Train Boy, all of these creators who pick apart every single little piece of Thomas the Tank Engine and reassemble it into something better than when they found it. And not even to mention this guy. Oh, what did he do? Why is he special? Well, I'm glad you asked. He made an entire Gauge 1 episode of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends with real models and real sets and real cameras. And it looks just as good as the originals. And he got 2 different dubs, just like the original series too. It looks fucking awesome! With the crashes and the tracks and the steadicams and the periscopes and the James and the Toby and the... Sorry. Allow me to regain myself. I'm gonna level with you here. I have a lot that rattles around in my brain about Thomas the Tank Engine kind of on a constant basis. It's like a little pinball machine up there. And there is no consistent way for me to talk about anything that I want to talk about that hasn't already been done better by other creators on the platform. Not to mention the amount of memes, not to mention the amount of popular influence that Thomas has in the internet space. One of the original memes from the earlier internet days, the earlier YouTube days, was the Thomas the Tank Engine theme song fitting with everything. Fitting with rap songs and pop songs and all these other things. Seeing, oh gosh, whatever his name is, Cornell Music do a video about the Thomas the Tank Engine theme song. This fandom does not get enough credit for what it does. I want to speak to some of those creators directly if I can. Unlucky Tug, you are the sole reason that I have rekindled the love that I had when I was a child for Thomas and Friends so strongly. And I wanted to thank you personally because I would not have rediscovered that love without you. Number 2, I want to thank Carson Marenka, one of the best episode creators, new episode creators that I have seen on the platform. Second to none, in my opinion. Even in your early days making the Richard the Big Engine series, it was still leaps and bounds above what even the Nitrogen era of the real show could accomplish in their time. The Buried Truck has a huge part to play in a lot of this because he writes a lot of these original stories that these animators animate to. It's inspired me to get 90% of the way to convincing myself to write Thomas stories myself, to try to submit them to animators, to creators, to make them. And I want to explore this space more. I want to talk about individual episodes. I want to talk about the series as a whole. I want to talk about fan canons, like Ryder Ronan's Express Engines book that he is creating so painstakingly. Sodor Castle is amazing, first and foremost. And even farther beyond that, I was there when your channel got hacked, Ryder. I thought, oh my god, I was devastated. I thought everything that you had done up to that point was lost forever. And when you came back, I was so happy to see it because I knew that your stories were going to have an ending, a proper ending. The Thomas the Tank Engine fandom doesn't exactly have the space to do cosplay, but I have seen creators do fan canons of anthropomorphic versions of the engines. It's really interesting, to say the least. I didn't even get to talk about Sodor Fallout and the other horror canons that exist within the Thomas universe, or the Thomas faniverse. Like, exploring what actually happens to engines if they were to... What a concept. The title of this chapter is correct because I don't have any further to go than this. Until I get an offer to be a voice in a animation that someone is doing, or to write a story for someone to animate, I don't know what to do because everybody else in this space does it a hell of a lot better. So I hope that this video has been fun, entertaining, informative at the beginning, and then devolving into just fanboying out of my mind in the middle, and then calming down at the end to a satisfying conclusion. With that satisfying conclusion being, check out the people that I have linked in the description. If you are here from my German dubs, I can do more. I have some lined up. But this is me. This is what I promised I would do in my return video. And I hope that I delivered well enough for you to stick around. So thank you so much for watching. And until the next video, go watch Thomas and Friends. They have seasons 1 through 7 somewhere. I know they do. I mean, I have them on my computer.